Right when the daily candle, the weekly candle closed yesterday, and right on the second when we turned the page from November to December, crypto decided to take a huge dump on us and crash. You guys might be thinking, what are you talking about? What does that have to do with anything? How did that affect the crypto price or Bitcoin price? And that's exactly what I'm going to break down for you guys and explain. And then we get into the charts. So what's up, guys? I'm Pat. This is Crypto Unhyped, where we focus on the data, not the drama. And that's exactly what we got. We got a crash caused purely by data. And the concept we're talking about is called daily close rebalancing. Something you guys might have heard about when we talk about funds and stocks. And now, of course, a huge phenomenon in the crypto markets as well. And it's an algorithmic crash, really, what it is. So if you think about that, there's ETFs, then there's funds, there's pension funds, derivatives, we have index funds and a lot of different funds for Bitcoin and crypto. And what these funds promise their investors is that they perfectly align with the Bitcoin price. If there is a mismatch between the price of Bitcoin and the value in the fund, then it's called a tracking error. And when that happens, then investors could sue the fund for not aligning perfectly with the asset price as promised. So what happens then is an algorithm kicks in and it pushes into the last second when the daily candle closes its orders, if it's sell orders or buy orders, to align perfectly with the Bitcoin price. So in this case, we had a triple crown, if you want to call it that, or triple threat, or whatever you want to call it. And we had the daily close, the weekly close, and the monthly close. And of course, in these time windows, when it's weekly and monthly, the volatility between the price differences is much bigger, right? So if they all close at the same time, that is a huge, huge event, and that can cause a huge price spike. And of course, if there's not a lot of liquidity in the markets, buy orders and so on, that can absorb such a spike, then we see a huge crash to the downside if these were all sell orders, of course. And that's exactly what we saw. We know we had let me get into the chart right away, actually, so we can see it here. We know we had a buy wall set up, or we had a nice fundament set up by spot action driving the price up. Of course, we spoke about it here in the last few streams that this price action here from the bottom, from the 80K bottom to the $93,000 top here, has been driven purely by spot action. This is people buying Bitcoin in order to hold Bitcoin, not planning to sell Bitcoin. Open interest has been at its lowest and continues to be at its lowest. As you can see here, completely flat. It's been dropping off since October 7th. So really, no open interest, no leverage in the market, therefore no real danger for us that we would fall through that level in the $89,000 range. As we saw there was a huge liquidation levels for long positions, of course. And usually when we get to a level like that after a sell-off, of course, long positions get liquidated and then we continue further downwards. But of course, if this gets triggered by here, daily close rebalancing at the same time, and with not only talking about daily but also weekly and monthly, that is just, of course, a huge trigger for the price to plummet. And that's exactly what we saw yesterday. And therefore, this is a huge opportunity usually to pick up the Bitcoin or whatever asset you're looking at in that scenario at a much lower price. There's a very good strategy that you can utilize in scenarios like this is, of course, you keep your eyes on the news. If you see there's no news in the market, there's nothing emotional really that caused a sell-off, then you know it's happening at 2 times. We have to focus on 2 times in the day. Back in the days, it was always 12 a.m. or midnight UTC. This is like the global average for financial markets. And then, of course, the Bitcoin daily candle always closed at that time, still does. And now we also have, of course, the ETFs, and they trade on US stock market times, so 4 p.m. Eastern time. So in both of these daily closes, we can get these massive spikes. But of course, the Sunday candle close, the weekly candle close, when it aligns with the daily candle close, is a much bigger event, of course, because we have them both lining up at the same time. So this was a big one. This is exactly what happened. There was no liquidity in the market, as we spoke about the last few days. And that caused, of course, that price to plummet like nothing. And now, guys, what do I expect for the price now? Of course, we have a big event coming up. I spoke about it yesterday. If you haven't gotten the data sheet yet, make sure to do so. It's in the chat right now. You can see it there right now. And then, of course, you can find it in the description and wherever you look, really, across social media, wherever I'm present. And there we see right now we have Fed Chair Jerome Powell holding a speech today. The last big speech from him before we get the interest rate decision on December 10th. Of course, officially, quantitative easing was supposed to start today. We will hear hopefully from Jerome Powell speaking about that, and then the same thing that we want to hear about, more about the interest rates, how we are looking forward to that. We really want to know what's going on. Are we going to see these cuts that now by Polymarket are estimated that about 89% that we're going to see rate cuts? So a massive one, of course. Everyone's anticipating that. No one wants to FOMO into anything before he takes the stage. And yeah, usually we start shaking when Mr. Powell takes the stage in the crypto markets, because you know how it goes, right? So yeah, guys, we're going to get into the charts. We looked at the ETF inflows last week. First inflows in 5 weeks. We see here 4 red weeks in a row. Minimal inflows last week. That just shows us how low the liquidity was during the Thanksgiving week. And of course, leading into a massive week that we have this week, with so much stuff going on. Tomorrow we have also the CPI data coming out of Europe, the Eurozone CPI year on year, which is the consensus is 2.1%. So we got to keep our eyes out on for that as well. And then, of course, we also got the ISM manufacturing PMI today. And tomorrow, not tomorrow, on Wednesday is a big one, ADP employment. We're not getting the NFP jobs report. It's delayed to December 16th. And therefore, this has a lot of pressure on it. And we're anticipating a big drop. And if that actually happens, that brings then, of course, recession talks back on the table. And that's going to be circulating in the crypto scene and the financial markets and causing a lot of fear in the markets. But therefore, we have our, let's call it guardian angel for now. If Jerome Powell now takes the stage and tells us that we're going to see a big rate cuts coming up, and he is dovish about continuing with rate cuts in January and so on as well, then of course that is very bullish for the markets. And if he really starts talking about quantitative easing and all that, that can really help us out with the Bitcoin price and the crypto markets. So guys, thanks for joining me, especially if you're new to the channel. Really appreciate all the new viewers that always tune into my streams here. Of course, we're still very small, still a micro cap, but here aiming for to become a top 10 token very soon, hopefully. And yeah, as I told you guys, the moment I start streaming, I'm going to be very consistent, and I'm going to give you daily updates, as I can plan my day around those streams much easier than if I have to do all the editing and stuff. So right, guys, nothing else really I want to cover today. We look at the liquidation heat map and all that in tomorrow's stream. We saw that the ETF outflows, of course, inflows were minimal last week. We see that open interest is still really low, and I covered it for you last, guys, that I don't expect open interest, at least here for long positions, to really pick up if we break either of the key levels here. Like, of course, to the upside, we want to break the prior high in the downtrend, break the previous lower high and get above 92,400 still. It's still the exact same thing. And then to the downside, as long as we still hold the line here on a 4-hourly closing basis above $82,000 roughly, then we're still all good here as well. The moment we start closing above or below these points, then of course we can expect open interest to pick up again, people taking on leverage to short or long the Bitcoin price. But for now, what we need to see is to really spot action to pick up here, to give us a very solid fundament so we can really mark this low as our current low before we continue upwards to hopefully soon challenge the $100,000 to $106,000 range. So this, of course, has been here a scenario that I told you guys that I think that we could have another pullback here from the 92. Well, it was the $89,000 to $92,000 range. This is the target area that we had since I think it was Friday a week ago or something, when we put in that big hammer on the daily chart. Then, of course, we went down to the 4-hourly chart, said the first step that we need to accomplish here is reclaim the prior range lows, which we did. You can see here that was the massive resistance. We reclaimed it here. And then, of course, the pivot point to flip the chart bullish again to get above the prior lower high here is right at 92,400. So exactly the same thing still. Now here the first step here to reclaim prior support again is getting above here also the 50 on the Fibonacci retracement for the entire uptrend here. So there we see right at $87,000. There we have the prior range closing lows, the 50 on the Fibonacci retracement. And then above there, of course, we want to reclaim that prior range in the downtrend here as support again in the $89,000 range, and then flip bullish above the 92,400 pivot. Daily chart, let's look at this. There's also something that you can really see, the difference between a futures chart and a spot chart, right? The index chart here, just purely focusing on the Bitcoin price, US dollar price. There we can see that we lost support on this falling wedge pattern here. There we also got the underside test from that perspective here. That's exactly where we got the rejection. These three circles here, of course, were our targets all along. This is not something that I drew up now because we got rejected there. This was our target area, and we got here a nice, really nice setup. You can see a shooting star at the top, followed up by a couple of bearish candles, and then, of course, this massive candle here to the downside. Of course, interesting now if we can confirm a higher low here now and get another retest here of also the 23.6 on the Fibonacci retracement for the entire downtrend, and then can reclaim that. Then, of course, logical next target from a Fibonacci perspective comes to 38.2. That is perfectly aligned here as well with the $98,000 to $100,000 range, or $101,000 range. 101,000 is the prior lows here. Basically what we saw with 89,000 on the 4-hourly chart. This is prior support that we want to reclaim. That also then puts us back above the 50-day EMA here. And then, of course, to flip bullish on this chart, we want to break the pivot point right at $106,000, almost on the spot. And that would also put us back above the 200-day EMA here and officially turn this chart bullish again. A lot of work to be done here for the bulls, and of course a lot of work to be done from the Fed to give us a market that is favorable for a rally to the upside. And therefore we need to hear about quantitative easing starting this month. We want to hear tonight from Fed Chairman Jerome Powell that he talks positive about, that he has a dovish tone about the rate cuts in December. Let's go back here to Polymarket. We can see that this here has been all the way down just a week ago, more or less, to what were the odds here? Right around 22%. It dropped from over 90% down to 22%. And now we're back up to 89% in favor for rate cuts in December. And of course, we got a bunch of data coming out in the next few days. So once again, guys, make sure to grab the data sheet to always know exactly what events to look out for. It always drops right after my stream on Sundays. So you can always pick that up. And once you sign up for it, all you got to do is drop your email. Then you always got to get it sent every week, Sunday, directly to your inbox. Okay, guys, so this is the key stuff here that we need to look out for. These are really the key 2 time frames that I'm looking at right now. Anything below is really not relevant in times like this. You want to really get clear confirmation on some relevant time frames and not go off the 15-minute chart and stuff like that. As long as we hold the low here, everything good. As I said, liquidity in the market is very low, and it would have picked up massively here, open interest, if we would have reclaimed, of course, 92,400 here. That would have made it clear for investors, and let's call them the gamblers, the leverage traders, right, that we have a solid spot fundament below us that we can utilize as support. And there we also saw from a liquidation perspective that also gave us very strong support there. And therefore here still the key to flip this bullish again. Before that, we can't even look at the area of $101,000 to $106,000, and that's of course where it gets really interesting here on the weekly chart. We're still holding support here, the exact same thing as we did for the last 3 weeks. We're coming off the 100 week SMA here in perfect alignment with the 38.2 on the Fibonacci retracement for the entire bull market, from the December or November lows in 22 to the current all-time high. And also if we take the last swing here from the bottom to the top here, there we see that we have the 78.6, so a very strong cluster here, also aligning with the lows from April, March. This is still the same support. And then obviously the logical next resistance level above us here. I think my internet just went out. I lost my indicators. It's back. Good thing thank God for 5G backup. And yeah, the resistance here, right? We have the prior dynamic support line here Then we have the 50-week SMA, of course. We have the prior range closing lows here, and the 50 on the Fibonacci retracement, the smaller one here, lining up with 23.6 on the larger one. So that is really a nut to crack here, right at $101,000. And that's basically on the spot, exactly what we want to reclaim here as step one as well on the daily chart, to reclaim prior support here in the downtrend, to put us in a position to get to the pivot point and to flip bullish here. So really, really tough task to ask. And but if we get a good outlook today from Mr. Powell, then that could help us a lot here, and that could at least put us back above support here and give us another shot to flip bullish on the 4-hourly chart again. Next level to the downside, if we don't hold here, if we start closing below $82,200 here on a 4-hourly closing basis, then we bring in the next support level into play, which is here. Let's go to a higher time frame where it becomes more visible, right here at the range lows. You can see here this, what was it, the April lows, right in the $75,000 to $70,000 range here. And then we also get the 50 on the Fibonacci retracement there for the entire bull market. So very strong support here between $76,000 and $71,000 more or less. That is, of course, then another buy area for me. And I'm going to get into all my buy areas in my next strategy video on Friday or Saturday. I'm not sure yet when I will be streaming. I'll be streaming 6 times a week from now, and I take one day off to post a video about more strategy stuff. Last week I've done it on the stream. We spoke about, of course, the concepts of liquidity, liquidation levels, ETF inflows, and yeah, guys, a lot of stuff on how the market dynamics work and how you can utilize a 3-dimensional view of different inflows and outflows to get an idea of where strong support and resistance is and where we can potentially find huge price movements. So if you're interested in that, that is the stream from a couple of days ago. Not yesterday, not the day before, from 3 days ago. So check it out. You can find it on the channel. And then I'll be doing this every Friday or Saturday now, about giving you price analysis 6 days a week. And then we also start going into altcoins and all that. Currently, I don't see the point really to talk so much about altcoins. Of course, I know you guys are really interested in what's going on with the tokens that we usually speak about here on the channel. You see here, that's the standard tokens here for crypto Unhyped. We have ETH, XRP, Solana, SUI, and Hyperliquid. These were the ones that we were focusing on here for the last few months. And I'll get back into these as well as all these other charts here. But I really want to see first here from this price level a decision from the bulls or the bears, whether we're taking the price higher or lower. And then here it really gets interesting for the entire market once we start approaching the $100,000 area. Before that, of course, it's really no man's land. We're hanging on to really strong support here, but we're not getting a really clear indication whether the trend continues to the downside or if we get the relief rally that we're all waiting for from this level. As I told you guys, I'm expecting that we see the underside test from this level. I spoke to you guys last week about it, that I'm expecting here another pullback from the $89,000 or $92,000 range, depending on how high we can take this rally here that we had. Of course, a rally that was driven by really thin spot action nonetheless. So of course, always good to have spot buyers in the market, giving us a fundament below from people that are not likely to sell their Bitcoin and that are not heavily leveraged and therefore have really tight stop losses. So that takes the gamble out of the market a little bit, and that's also what I spoke about in that video. And I gave you a nice visual example about how you can look at it as mines, a big minefield, the crypto market. And when there's low liquidity, that we basically have no sandbags around to hide behind or underneath, and have to absorb the blasts whenever we hit into a liquidation level, where then of course a big price explosion comes from. When there's high liquidity in the market, the buy orders absorb the blast from reaching the liquidation level. And if there's no liquidity in the market, then of course we're basically standing in an open field with mines going off all around us. And that's what we see sometimes in the market when of course whales start pushing the price at these levels. So guys, this is basically it here. These are the key levels to look out for. Pretty late for me once again here, late stream here. I started at 10 p.m. my time, but I'll stay awake to keep my eyes out for what Mr. Powell has to say. And then, of course, we'll talk about it in tomorrow's stream. Of course, hopefully we get some good news and that we get a fast recovery here. We can see the market is anticipating the speech already. We're trying to put in a bottom here, but yeah, we need to get back above here, right around 86,900 bucks. That's our first here line in the sand to cross, to really get support below us again, potentially to start forming another structure here with higher highs and higher lows, to revisit the $92,400 level. And then if we get above there, guys, then it's starting to look really, really interesting. Then I expect where we got it, open interest to really start picking up again, because then, of course, smart money would enter the market with leverage again, because we get a clear indication that we're flipping bullish, at least on the 4-hourly chart, which, of course, universally is a major time frame. And therefore, if we're bullish on that time frame, then we can start aiming at the underside of the daily chart, where then, of course, we would flip bullish at 106K. So clear logical target, if we flip bullish now on the 4-hourly chart, is the range between $98,000 and $101,000. And then above there, if we can reclaim that as support on a daily closing basis, then we can look at the $106,000 range. And above there, really a daily close above $106,000 would completely flip me bullish again here, for not only for the short term, but for the remainder of this cycle. And I would highly expect then that we see another retest of the 8-year resistance up here in the 130 to 100, in the $130,000 range. And then, guys, if we can crack that nut here and get back above there, or get above there for the very first time, then of course we can expect all these crazy price targets that people were talking about going into this cycle. But for now, that's still a resistance, and to get there, we have a lot of work to do. Otherwise, of course, the momentum continues to the downside. Right now, all the charts are bearish. The only one that we looked at yesterday here, the higher time frames, the broader trend is still bullish. We're on a trading basis. We're still holding a higher low here, and on a closing basis right now, even if we would close where we are right now, we're still sitting above here, the key yellow line, where we see that that's the prior higher low on a closing basis. So anything on a monthly closing basis above 82,350 bucks, no problem. Anything below there, very clear signal that we're going down here to at least $70,000, and then potentially all the way down into the $40,000 to mid $30,000 range, where I expect the bottom to be if now the top is in for Bitcoin. Right, guys, that's it for me for today. Not much to add here. I hope you understood what I was talking about in the where I explained to you exactly what's going on with the daily close rebalancing. I will make a specific video with more graphics and everything about this as well, just like I will do about the dynamics between liquidity and all that good stuff that I spoke about earlier. Right, guys, thanks for joining me. Everyone new to the channel, beautiful to have you here. I hope you enjoyed the analysis. I hope you found some value in it. I hope you found a bit of clarity in this crazy market. And if you want to get more of that, then of course, join us here in Team Crypto Unhyped by hitting the subscribe button, like button, drop me a comment, get involved in the chat, just like I see here. King Somming Genting, one of our top viewers here on the channel. Hi to you too. Thanks for watching. And yeah, guys, I'm out of here. And as always, happy trading. See you soon.